Hello everyone. I decided to go further with studying some instructive games in the Grünfeld defense, which can happen from our opening repertoire, which we did with Angelika Valkova, and I would like to just to briefly say that it's still on sale for three more days. So in the description below the video you can find the links where you can get more information about the course. Of course, these videos are also some information that what are we aiming for and what you can expect from the course, but you can also check those other sources. Okay, so let's go into the game. So today's game is a game between Russian grandmaster Vladimir Epishin, and he played against Croatian grandmaster Mladen Palac. So we have this 5 bishop f4 variation of the Grünfeld, and against short castle in the course we recommend to play with rook c1. So in the previous videos we were looking at the move c6, which as I said, I believe it's an inferior move for black, kind of allowing a nice version for the Slav Schlechter for white. So in this video we see a more principled continuation from black. It's d takes c4. So what happens if black captures this pawn? Then we play e4, grab the center, and black plays c5. So it's rather typical for the Grünfeld to play like this instead of c6 to attack the center with c5. And here white has different options, but our recommendation is to play with d takes c5 and offer an endgame for black, where I believe white will keep at least slightly better chances. So black plays knight a6, it's completely normal, queen takes d8, rook d8, and e5. So basically this is the kind of critical position of this line, and black players tried everything in this position, so wherever this knight could potentially go, they tried all of it. Hard to say which one is the best. Once again, in my opinion, in all the cases, white should keep at least a slight plus. So in this game, Palac goes to e8, and we go bishop e3. So here is the, I believe, advantage, one of the advantages of this line for white, that you know, this c4 pawn is really hard to do anything with, so to say. So like it will be lost, and it will be lost like cleanly. It will be taken by bishop takes c4 in a very few moves. But this c5 pawn is tricky. So first of all, we can protect it in different ways, like we do it with bishop e3. Now also the knight could protect. And also this pawn has this potential to go to c6, therefore force bc6, and then create one extra pawn island for black on the queen side. So that's why I value this pawn a little bit more than the c4 pawn. So bishop e3 was played, and knight b4. This move was a novelty at the time of the game. So basically what this move is saying, that black doesn't want to take on c5, but looks for some other type of active counterplay. So let's see what happens if black plays the most natural move, which is bishop e6, so protecting c4. But here comes the problem, knight g5. So this bishop is, you know, harassed by the knights. If it comes to d5, then the other one can take it, and then the c4 pawn is going to be lost eventually. Of course, if black takes on e5, this is not an equal trade, so to say. So white has the pair of bishops, queenside majority, and weak pawns for black. So this is just really awful. In a few games, knight c7 was played, but then white has the time to play f4. So protecting on e5, bishop h6, But then we take on e6, take e6 and g3, so we build this nice pawn chain to restrict this bishop on a6. And now, even though black can do a fair trade, so to say, so he takes on c5, we take on c4. So originally we would have the pair of bishops, like if we have one more move to make, it's probably king e2 and keep the 2 bishop advantage, but here black has knight to d3, but bishop d3, rook d3, king e2. What basically happens is that white transforms the advantage of the pair of bishops to better binder pieces and to targets on the queen side, so this bishop is completely out of the play. Knight is a little bit awkwardly placed, but at least it covers the c7 square, so it's not so easy to enter. So ideas for white include, I believe, playing moves like knight b5, hitting on a7, and maybe even then some move like knight c7 to trade this knight and enter the rook via c7, and the difference between the 2 bishops should tell eventually, so it's a very bad position for black. So therefore this knight b4 was tried. And here, of course, white takes on c4, it's very logical, and bishop e6, so that was black's idea. And here, of course, white could play a move like bishop e2, but then black takes on a2, knight a2, bishop takes on a2, and this position is complicated. So black will also get some very nice minor pieces, so like bishop on d5 will be nice. Knight can come to c7, some pressure on the e5 pawn therefore because of bishop f3 ideas. This is not so clear. I would say it's closer to equality than an advantage for white. I would still play rather with white, but it's pretty okay for black. So white reacted in the most principled way, and in the only way which guarantees an advantage, sacrificing an exchange. Bishop takes on e6. Of course, if f e6, then white is a pawn up, there is nothing to talk about, but knight d3, check. Intermediate move was black's idea, and it doesn't matter where the king goes. Black is taking this rook takes e1, f e6. So what happened here? Black is up in exchange. White has a knight and a pawn for it. Okay, this pawn means that we have the queenside majority basically, so it's an extra c pawn. And for now, black's minor pieces, especially the bishop, is extremely bad. So that's this e5 pawn is cutting that piece out of the game. And once again, these pawns on the queenside are very dangerous. So practically speaking, I would say that the opening was a success. Definitely for white, and yeah, it's very tough to play with. And with black disposition, and chances to win, for example, with black are very low here, which is also a difficult thing to play only for 2 results. And next move is quite instructive for me, or I don't know what is the correct word actually. So if we start to push pawns on the queen side, it looks like much more logical to start with b4. So just to protect the c pawn, and like eventually we want to play c6, right? So that's our way to create a passer there. So it just feels much more natural to play b4. But here white played a4. And yeah, it's a very interesting moment for me. Why a4? I spent some time on it. That what could be the reason. I mean, white Epishin, I believe, was a helper or second of Karpov for quite a while, and a very strong player himself. So very strong technician. So I don't know, and maybe the reason is that this a4 is kind of asking for some move that we did not build our chain, so to say, perfectly. So not b4 first and then a4. So it's asking for a move like a5, which actually a mistake. So maybe he just wanted to offer black this extra opportunity to go wrong, and that would be my best guess, because here the knight goes to b5, and the knight's now not so easy to bring this knight into the game. For example, if rook c8, then white can play rook c3 and then rook b3, attack b7, and then you can see that maybe that's why he delayed. pushing the b2 pawn to have this rook b3 idea. I mean, pretty instructive. I mean, there is no difference as how the game went, but offering opponent to go wrong is also a skill. So black played knight c7 and now b4, and knight d5 was played. And it's of course a critical moment for black to decide what to do with this knight, but it's hard to suggest anything better than to play knight d5 at some moment. So it looks normal. White took, and he took back with the rook. Taking back with the e pawn, I would say, wouldn't help too much. White can immediately play c6, but my suggestion would be just not to rush, just simply to play b5. We can put our bishop to d4 just to stabilize on e5, and the main thing, of course, is to improve our knight. It's doing nothing after the bishop goes to d4, so it doesn't have to protect on e5. We go around to d3, maybe to b4, maybe from f4 we go. So yeah, black is extremely passive, and we have all the time in the world to prepare for c6. And if black wants something like a6 to open the a file, then we of course close with b6. And the problem is that blockade on the light square cannot exist for black, simply because he has no such piece to do so. So if anytime a rook is coming there, knight can kick from d4, from b4, from a5. So we don't have to be afraid of a blockade. So in the game it was rook d5, and white played b5. Probably the slight inaccuracy, I would say. So it looks, according to my analysis, it looks like that c6 was very strong already. So it will be not a pass pawn, but basically we are creating entry squares for our rook, and e6 pawn will be weak, a7 pawn will be weak, and it looks like that objectively speaking it was a stronger move. So what options does black have? So b6, of course, it looks very, ugly, or I don't know, like bishop d4, and we just create a protected passer on c6. That's not really advisable. b5 is maybe a little bit more interesting, but then a takes b5, and if the rook takes back, then there is bishop c5 with knight d4 to follow, and black's rooks are horrible. So there is kind of one important line here: bishop takes e5. And here it looks like that we are maybe allowing black some play. So rook is getting active, bishop is getting out, but there is this important move: bishop takes on a7. So the rook cannot take back, because then the pawn simply queen. So after rook b5, rook c5. Again, if black trades on c5, bishop c5, and the connected passers are winning, the rook b4, c7, take, and eventually this position should be converted to a win from whites. So probably bc6, and then rook c6, bishop e5, and then just simply knight takes on e5. So getting rid of that bishop, and after rook e5, rook a6. Absolutely awful position. Computer trying to hold this, but I mean, we have threats like b5, b6, simply creating maybe an a7 passer. Black doesn't really have great chances to survive, I would say. In the game, b5 was played, and bishop e5, c6. So basically the whole thing is very similar if black would have taken now on c6, knight e5, rook e5, rook c6. So rook is going to a6. But now b6 was, I mean, not that terrible as in the previous line, where we could just protect the pawn on e5. So kind of changing the move order, and first pushing c6 would have been better. So now knight e5, rook e5. Of course, this position is still awfully unpleasant for black, but according to the computer, it is defendable, which doesn't mean anything because it is so difficult. In his annotations to the game, Epishin wrote that this rook d1 is brilliant move, and actually, he's almost right according to modern computers. There is only one move which holds for black. So the idea is, of course, very nice. White does not want to allow the black rook back to d5. He wants to trade it and then win thanks to the far advanced pawns on the queen side. But yeah, as I said, there will be one defense. So in my opinion, the best would have been to play king d3. So bring the king, let's say king f7, king d4. And, you know, eventually the thing is that, okay, we protect on b5 and our goal is to play a5 in the perfect moment. So maybe prepare with rook a1. Still very hard to see how exactly black is going to hold this position. But yeah, at least he has some chances now. So rook d1 was played, and yeah, there are some nice lines here, but eventually there is one move again which is disturbing. So if black plays rook e4, then it's pretty simple because c7, rook d8 is a big threat. Black has to move this rook, I mean there is no other move. And then rook d8, rook c4, so black can stop the pawn like this. And everything looks good, maybe even, you know, black can hope for more than a draw here, but there is bishop a6, forcing the f8 rook to move, and that rook doesn't really have any good squares, so this is just over. The most beautiful line is coming after rook d5. So this is the idea of rook d1, so now we can play a5, and b takes a5, which looks like a good move, and kind of winning for black is actually losing because of bishop a7. So this is the power of, you know, these tactical pawns on the 6th and 5th rank, that okay, rook is taking back, but rook cannot stop the pawns when those are reaching the 6th rank. So that was the whole point, and actually there is one very tricky variation also. So black is ignoring this threat, king f7. And here I believe many players would gladly and happily take with bishop on b6. Because if ab6, and now not 2 but 3 pawns are running, which is like, you know, super easy win. And if, okay, black is not taking, then what are we talking about? But there is this brilliant move a6. And suddenly the pawns are not connected anymore. So black is getting rid of the b pawn. And it's absolutely not easy to, I mean, it's not possible to promote. So white has to be somewhat careful here to hold the balance here. So it's a pretty nice move. So the simpler way ab6 is correct, and after ab, bishop b6, king e6, bishop c7, and this pawn is unstoppable. So white is winning that way. King f8 was played in the game, and it almost makes the draw, but king f7, more natural, I would say. More natural move. It really does make it very difficult for white to win. So rook d7 looks like the natural move, but here there is a nice defense for black. To play rook e4 looks completely ridiculous at first sight, to force a5, which is a nice move for black, but then go back to e5. And suddenly the protection of this b5 pawn is not so easy. If white plays something like c7 and the king is close now, so rook d8 threat can be neutralized in this way. So yeah, after king f7, I could not find anything. Computer is saying zeros. Of course, in a practical game, I take white all the time, and, you know, I play something like rook d4, maybe go with ideas rook h4 to try something on the king side to force a weakness, and, you know, we are not really risking anything. I mean, we can also go out from this pin, so the bishop is free to go somewhere. So quite a few ideas for white. It's not a draw, I mean, whatever the computer is saying, but objectively this was the correct defense. King f8 is a little bit unlucky move because rook d7 was played. And here this defense with rook e4, a5, rook e5 is not working because now ab, and rook b7. And the point is that we have c7 with rook b8 check. That's the problem. So if we go like rook b5, c7, and let's say this check is huge, so like rook goes to a2, for example, and after king, I mean, it can go to d1, it can go anywhere, it's winning. So this rook b8, c8 is unstoppable because these are coming with a check. And if it would not come with a check, but king would be here, it would be like much trickier. So this defense doesn't really work, and the main point is that after ba5, and probably yeah, this is the really nice point of rook d1, that here there is rook takes a7. Again, highlighting the huge power of this pawn. That now it doesn't really matter what is you know, on the other parts of the board. After rook a7, b6, it again eventually comes down to these two pawns and the rook. And black has even one more extra rook, but simply cannot stop the pawns. So rook a8, b7. I mean, and if rook a6, we can push both pawns. I believe it's just a matter of taste. Let's say we push c7, black stops with rook c4 and b7. And both threats are impossible to prevent. So on rook d7, a6 was played, but here again it allows a very nice finish for white, and the typical one. So when black weakens his chain, then we can just break through in this way. So whatever black takes, we can push. So ab5, ab6, ba5, b6. We will get a pawn to b6, rook b5, ab6. So black resigned at this moment. Simply one of our pawns will reach b6, and that's already pretty much a queen. So quite interesting endgame and quite nice exchange sacrifice, highlighting the fact that this bishop here on g7 is really out of play, and practically speaking, it is only white who can be hoping for something good in such positions. So, and this idea can happen in different lines. So this exchange sacrifice, for example, there is one very similar exchange sacrifice in the same-ish variation of the King's Indian defense, which is again like completely different opening, but the position we get is actually, strategically speaking, very, very similar to this one. All right, so thanks a lot for watching. Next video probably also Grünfeld. So we are examining different type of positions in the Grünfeld and what we are doing against those, and then probably moving on to some different openings. So thanks a lot for watching, and see you soon.